pleased to introduce our speaker, and before I do that, I should read the disclosure. The presenters indicated that this presentation will not include any discussion of commercial products or services and will not include any discussion of off-label and or investigational uses of any product or services and will not include trade names. At this time, I wanted to introduce Kostas Voutsas. Kostas has been teaching management and human resources for 20 plus years. He's a tenured professor of business at Dickinson State University. He is also an author, a corporate trainer, and a keynote motivational speaker. Kostas delivers dynamic presentations at national and health and state conferences and publishes his research in scholarly journals. His book, Secrets to Making Diversity Work, discusses gender, cultural, and generational differences. Kostas has a Master's of Science degree in Human Resources and an MBA in General Business.
So my question for you, Pete, and you don't have to answer that, is for everybody, is how many of you like planting, right? Imagine that this seed is your organization. What is going to happen to it if you feed it with miscommunication, if you feed it with lack of respect for differences, no matter if they are generational, regional, cultural differences? If you feed it with lack of diversity of inclusion, is it going to grow? Or is it going to look something like that? Mostly dead, right? Let's go back to that seed or your organization. What will happen to it if you feed it with effective communication, respect for differences? If you incorporate diversity and inclusion as part of your strategic vision, right? It's going to grow and it will become fruitful. So ladies and gentlemen, my question for you today is, which of those two plants would you like your organization to look like? And I would really hope that you're going to choose the colorful, the pretty, the healthy one as compared to the dead one, right? Well, my name is Kostas Voutsas. I'm a professor of business at Dickinson State University. As I said earlier, I do qualify to be a Greek North Dakotan. I'm from Greece originally, but I survived 18 winters. Well, last winter doesn't count. It was perfect. 17 winters in North Dakota. So don't I qualify to be a Greek North Dakotan? I'm also serve as a consultant, as a trainer. And thank you so very much for being with me today in this presentation, Blind Spots, right? Riding the waves of diversity, unconscious bias, and change. So me being working in the North Dakotan workforce for over 18 years, ladies and gentlemen, I realized that shift happens at work with an F, right? Shift happens. So this is what I'm thinking. We shifted, right, from the black and white TV. How many of you remember growing up with a black and white TV? 1 or 2 channels only, no remote control. Right? To having a TV in every room, including the bathroom, right? Somebody told me once, if you have a TV in your bathroom, right? Shift must really happen. That was not my saying though, but we shifted from face-to-face conferences to virtual events, right? And kudos to the team. Thank you. Thank you for putting all this hard work and effort, putting such a innovative event virtually this year. We shifted from buying the regular type of coffee, right? Folgers, whatever coffee we buy, to Starbucks. Older generations many times might not understand why would anybody pay $5.25 for a cup of coffee, whereas you can buy a small can on sale for that price. We shifted in the way we fly, right? How many of you flew recently with a mask, right? And you visualize the entire plane, everybody's wearing a mask, right? And having to keep that mask for as long as your flight lasts. And what do they do when you first enter the plane? They give you that little hand sanitizer with a hello and a smile, right? This is what we call the new normal. We shifted in the way we shake hands or not shake hands nowadays as a result of COVID. We shifted even in the way that our offices look. We're talking about the plexiglass. We're talking about hand sanitizers everywhere, right? Which has become a norm. Even I saw shift during groceries, right? Let me take you back about a year from today when COVID was kind of, something new, right? And I want to take you back to the grocery stores. So we shifted from having a full cart of groceries. Instead, we saw people fighting over toilet paper, right? So instead of having groceries to consume, then we saw people hoarding that toilet paper that was necessary to have. We shifted in going back to the grocery stores from going to some of the basic areas of our groceries, such as rice or bread or pasta. Then we shifted into a grocery store that those entire sections were empty, right? And I know you can relate with me, regardless of where you are from, regardless of your town, we experienced that event. We shifted in the way that we are looking at the generations in our workplace. We're talking about shifting from baby boomers being professionally dressed with a suit and a tie to Gen Yers, right? Generation Y. We're talking about 38 to 25 to 38, 39 years old. It is the generation of Ys. Why do I need to wake up in the morning and go to work at 8? No one does anything before 10. I'm so sorry, Gen Ys. I'm just picking on you a little bit, right? But this is the only generation that is the multitasking generation. They get 10 things at a time and they succeed. And how can we ignore that generation since within the next 5 years, the projections say that this is the generation that will be comprising over 55% of our workforce in the Dakotas. Right? So the question is, what are we doing as we strategically think about our workforce, right? Are we coaching? Do we develop any leaders? Are we focusing as to how we can handle the day-to-day operations? Or we're thinking in long term, based on our mission, how do we go from here to there? And how do we factor in the fact that shift really happens? Oh boy, I can tell you so many shift happen stories here. We shifted from having listening to music from a regular cassette, right? Do you remember what is a cassette? Some of you, have you seen a cassette? Yeah, maybe not, right? Gen Xers, you're going to tell me, oh boy, this is how I grew up. You're bringing me back to high school. That's all we did, right? With a cassette. We listened to music and copied the music from the radio, although it was illegal at the time, right? And then we brought those cassette tapes and we exchanged them with our friends. We were Napster, right? Without even knowing what Napster was at the time. Very, very entrepreneurial generation. So we shifted from that cassette to going back to right now listening to music with iPods and whatever, devices, whatever iDevice comes up every month, right? A whole different reality. Talking about cassettes, let me ask you this, younger generations, and I'd like to send me via chat here. Please utilize the chat room. Do you know what is the relationship between a cassette and a pen or a pencil? What's the relationship between a cassette and a pencil? Let me see here. Do you remember or have you heard of that before? All right. I'm not going to tell you though. You got to tell me. When it comes into shift happens is, there you go. Shonda says, it is how you fix it when the ribbon is loose. All right, rewind, Vanessa says. If you get stuck and the tape pulls out, you use a pencil to fix it, Brittany says. How you wind it up, Roxanne says. Thank you, which is really interesting, right? You know what's the sad news, Tony? I was trying to find me a cassette this morning to show you, and I couldn't even find me one. So I'll have to go back and dig down the road. We shifted from technology to more technology to even more technology. Even that boy, that little boy, sent a letter to Santa, and I found that on Yahoo maybe 2-3 years ago. And he said, "Dear Santa, this is what I want for Christmas. Go to www.amazon.com and find out." Right? So instead of sending the letter and saying, "Dear Santa, this is what I want. I was a good boy. I would like a car," like many of us from an older generation did, right? That little boy sent the actual URL to Santa. Very practical, right? Why? That little boy grew up with technology that changes all the time, right? But this is our challenge, my friends. How can we collaborate, strengthen our teams, our leadership especially, so that we can accommodate that little boy, that he will need our help down the road as a patient, or that he will be employed by us? And how do we keep that little boy? I saw that the previous presenter, very, very interesting presentation, I should say, the costs to locate a physician, right? And correct me if I'm wrong here, $30,000 a year, right? But here is the challenge, my friends, right? It's not only bringing people into the organization, but if we lose people every time we lose somebody, that will cost your organization 1.5 times the employee's annual salary. So you're hiring me at 200,000, right? I'm going to be costing you, right, 300,000 a year later if I leave. And if I leave, now picture that. If I hire or Generation Z, 38 and below, 38 years old and below, right? Then yes, I'm loyal and everything matters to me, but I'm going to be loyal to my supervisor and to my team, not necessarily to my organization, right? And this is a reality for the younger generations. As a result, if my supervisor does not respect me, if we don't have a team that really embraces diversity and inclusion, right? Eventually, I will not be happy, I will not be motivated, and I will leave. Which means you're going to have to spend another 30,000 next year to find my replacement, right? Isn't it making a little more sense to develop standards, to strategically plan from the leadership, from the top to the bottom and throughout, so that we can create a culture of inclusion and keep our amazing people that we employ, right? We're going to save money, we're going to save time, and life will be good. So, talking about shift, oh boy. Ladies and gentlemen, we shifted, especially in North Dakota, from Nefla soup, right, to sushi. Now, oh boy, Nefla soup. I never had Nefla before I came to North Dakota. I love Nefla. Who doesn't love Nefla, right? And to me, North Dakota, the culture of Nefla, right? Scandinavian, German origin people. And then what happened is sushi happened. The oil boom happened, right? So we started seeing regional diversity. We started seeing generational diversity throughout the United States, right? Baby boomers slowly are retiring, right? No matter how much we want to keep them and they want to stay, eventually they are leaving us, right? Most traditionalists already left, 2% or less left in the workplace, 70 or older years old, right? So now the generational group is huge. How about ethnic diversity? Take a look at the customers that you are, or the patients that you have. Take a look at your teams. We cannot ignore the fact that the Hispanic group grows 5 times faster than any other group, right? So you're going to tell me, oh boy, you're so right. I never thought that in North Dakota or in South Dakota or in Midwest in general, we're going to be having so many Hispanics or working with Hispanics, right? When it comes into diversity, the Asian group grows much faster. It's expected to double from 3% to 6% in our workforce within the next 5 or 6 years, right? The white group is declining. So you want to think about all these demographic changes, and you want to see how is your organization going to take a position into that. Are you going to react, or are you going to be proactive? And let me tell you, I want to tell you this story. About 12 years ago, I teach right now for Dickinson State, and of course I do consulting. I'm all over the place. But 12 years ago, or 13 maybe, I lived in Dickinson. Great town, lovely people. I mean, amazing place. I still go there quite frequently. One night we had a tornado back then that took my home. And it was an interesting story. It felt like, well, picture me, my wife, and my 3 kids, young kids at the time, in the basement closet. And for maybe half a minute or so, maybe less, it felt like, you know what it felt like? When you're driving and you have 2 trucks beside you at the same time, shaking you really, really well, right? That's how it felt. And then all I remember is walking upstairs and looking at the sky, because the top part of the house was gone, right? And I was thinking, wow, that's a pretty night tonight. This was my first thought, right? What happens though, in that case, we reacted, right? Obviously, we did not have time to prepare. We did not know. It took the entire neighborhood 3 years to be rebuilt, and it looks better than ever now. Everything is great. Luckily, no one was severely hurt. Life was great, right? Before that tornado, however, there was a thunderstorm that destroyed a little bit of the sidings of the houses. It took the neighborhood 2 weeks to rebuild, right? So the question is, would you rather you handle a thunderstorm or a tornado? And I tell you from my own experience, you can handle tornadoes, but they are much more painful, and they take a whole lot of time and money to be addressed, right? So going back to diversity inclusion, right? My question is, what are your plans so that we can create an organization that really values people as the number one asset, right? What if we fail to communicate that vision? What if we really fail to communicate? Let's do an activity, and I would really like for a couple of you to show me your results, if that's okay. So all you need for this activity is to locate a blank piece of paper. And it can be any type of paper, any size, lines, and any type of paper. Let's pretend that we are the same organization. And let me be the boss. As a boss, I'm going to be a dictator type of boss, a boss that you probably don't care for a whole lot. So now, Melissa, for this activity, if you have questions, I'm so sorry to say, but you got to keep them to yourselves. Just for this next minute, right? And then, of course, throughout the presentation, I would like to keep it interactive. Feel free to share your thoughts. Feel free to utilize the chat room. All you need to do is locate a blank piece of paper and listen and do as I tell you. And then I would love to see some of the findings, to see some of your masterpieces you're going to create. Are we ready to begin? All right, remember, no questions asked for this activity. I'm going to show to you what will happen if we fail to communicate a consistent message within our organization. I would like you to fold the paper, please. Please fold the paper. No questions asked. I would like you to tear the top left-hand corner. Please tear the top left-hand corner. What if you fold the paper one more time and tear the bottom right-hand corner? Tear the bottom right-hand corner. What if you also tear the bottom left-hand corner? And I know that you've dealt with plenty more challenges before. So what if you fold your paper one last time? I know you can do it. And tear the top right-hand corner and also tear the bottom left-hand corner. All right. I truly want you to forget about my rules. I want to hear from you. Most importantly, I want to see what you have created. Can anybody would like to show me what you got there? Any results? I know I prepared a couple for you. Anybody has a paper with a hole in the middle? You can say yes, utilizing the chat room. If you don't have a hole, Barbara does, right? Anybody has 2 holes? Let me see. A couple of yeses, more. Right? Yes, all right. So some of you have a hole, 1 hole in the middle. Some of you have 2 holes. Anybody has a no hole at all? Let me hear a couple of no's here. And I'm looking at the chat here. 1 hole, yes. Yes, 1 hole. No hole at all, right? Whole different story right now. Thank you for sharing, all of you. And I greatly appreciate the amazing interaction. I tore my corners, Teresa says, but separate the tears of the paper, right? Whole different reality. So what I really wanted to do today, ladies and gentlemen, was to really communicate my vision on diversity and inclusion that look like that. But as your boss, I failed to do that. Why? Because I'm very talented in many other areas, but I'm not a very good communicator. As a result, each of you understood it differently, right? So some of you understood it like that. Some of you understood it like that. As a result, I'm going to create confusion. I'm going to create conflict, right? And it takes time, and conflict brings more conflict and more conflict. Now, if you were allowed to ask me questions, what type of questions you would have asked me? Anybody would like to tell me? And feel free to utilize the chat room. What type of questions you would have asked me? Somebody might say, which way to fold it? Somebody might say, do you tear it? Mary says, folding, which direction? Melissa says, do we tear it on the folded on open end? Which way to fold it, it says? Do we tear it or tear it off? Right? There you go, Teresa. Same thought, same time. We thought of the same thing. What size of a paper? Debbie says, right? And then the discussion continues, Roxanne. Thank you so much. I want to demonstrate this. I really need somebody to be kind enough and help me out and be able to talk to me. But in order for you to qualify, you will need to have a significant other and a dog. Anybody that would be kind enough to help me out with a significant other and a dog, please. Then feel free to unmute, and we need to have a very brief discussion. I want to ask you a couple of questions about your dog. All right, Teresa, do you have a dog? Help me out here. I do. Katie, yay, Katie. All right. Katie, can you click on the camera and your mic? Do you have a mic or a camera to tell us? If not, that's okay. We can utilize the chat room. Katie, I'll utilize the chat room, so I'm going to voice your thought. We can make it work out really, really well. Oh, there you are. Katie. Hi, Katie. What do you do?
I'm a practice manager for cancer services and palliative care at All True Health System.
That sounds really fancy. Thank you for all you do. How many people do you supervise?
I think we have around 80.
Oh boy. Yeah, I'll say that again. Thank you for all you do, because obviously when it comes into miscommunication, trying to connect this with this, sometimes the puzzle gets complicated, right? And it might take a little time and a little extra effort on top of you having to get your job done, right? As a supervisor. I totally get it. All right, let's talk a little bit about your dog. What type of a dog do you have?
She's a Treen Walker Coonhound.
Oh, Coonhound. That's awesome. And what is her name?
Doris.
Doris, you know, you have one horrible day at work, you know, nothing worked. 2 of your key people decided to quit. There is drama, there is gossip. By the way, 36 of the entire workforce gossips, and 3/4 of the gossip is organization-based. Like, why did she get the promotion instead of me? I'm so much better, and all this nonsense, right? Clicks. So everything comes to your plate, and now you got to make that decision. So you work really long this whole week. You finally go home. You have this nice, comfortable chair that you're trying to relax. and you're sitting down, and all of a sudden you're thinking, did you say your dog's name is Doris?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're like, darn it, Doris, you urinated all over my chair, right? Hopefully she will never do that. Would she?
No.
Okay, good. Doris has behaved. So you lose your mind, you get angry, you do not yell, you do not scream. Instead, you lock Doris to the bathroom for 15, 20 minutes. After 15, 20 minutes, you unlock the bathroom. How is Doris going to react, Katie?
She would be excited to see me.
She'll be excited and happy to see you. She'll be climbing all over you, licking you. Say, hey, Mom, I'm here, right? Pets love us. They forgive, they forget. She might be confused, thinking, what the heck? Okay, what did I do? But overall, she'll be excited. Let's forget about Doris. And can you tell me about your significant other? Can you share a name of your significant other, please?
Derek.
Derek. So let's say you and Derek had plans to go to Hawaii, this fun, fancy vacation, but you're very responsible people. You're going to do it the right way. You're going to set your Hawaii budget. And so far, you saved up $3,000. It can be Alaska if you want it to be. Do you want Alaska or Hawaii? What do you want?
Hawaii.
Hawaii. Would Derek want Alaska or Hawaii?
Hawaii.
All right. So you both like the sun. So you saved up $3,000. You're thinking, I need another $3,000. So you're halfway done with your goal. Now, let me ask you this. Does Derek have any expensive hobbies? Does he hunt or, any golf or something that it can be pricey?
He collects jerseys.
Oh boy, yes. All right. And so he collects jerseys. And how much was the most expensive jersey that he bought?
I don't think he would tell me.
Okay. All right. It was interesting because I was sipping my coffee here and you were telling me that. So what happens is and I see a lot of comments here that people are laughing and say LOL to that. Now, one day you come home, he's under the weather or was under the weather, and he's like, honey, I'm so sorry. I spent about $2,500 of our $3,000 Hawaii fund on one jersey because it's such an item that will make it worth like more than double within the next couple of years. Just trust me. Hawaii can wait another year. Not a big deal. So you lose your mind. You don't scream. You don't yell, Katie. Instead, you lock Derek to the bathroom for half an hour. Don't you think of it? Or you could, I guess. I don't know. Now, half an hour, when you unlock the bathroom, how is he going to react? Is he going to be like climbing all over you, being lovey-dovey like Doris was, being all happy to see you and excited to see you, or not?
Probably not.
Not. How is he going to react?
Did I calm down yet?
So probably you'll be losing your mind still then, right? All right, maybe you lock him back to the bathroom. He'll be safer there. So you'd be the mad one.
Probably.
Still. How long would it take you to forgive him?
Not that long.
Not that long. Okay. So, all right. Hopefully he's not going to listen to this recording because he'll say, ooh, then I can go spend our money on jerseys now. Eventually, within a day or two, you're thinking you might forgive him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And then life is good. You know why, Katie? Because you love him, right? So the loved ones, what we do is natural. We love, we forgive, we forget. But let's go back to one of your clients, one of your patients, one of your colleagues that is making your life miserable. It makes you want to scream, right? What do? You lock them to the bathroom just because you need 10 minutes or half an hour of peace of mind. Guess what? They will not forgive, they will not forget. And 10 years later, they're going to remember that incident. The reason why I'm bringing that is every time, and you're a supervisor, every time we see drama, conflict, he said, she said, that nonsense, and we don't take action to address diversity, inclusion, acceptance, how do we move forward, right? Then, and I see that firsthand as a consultant, because when a company calls me to do a mediation, you know, many times people tell me, 10 years ago, he did that to me. She did that to me 7 years ago. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, people are carrying these leftovers over time. And it's like when you go to the airport with one piece of luggage, piece of cake, right? You can move forward. But when you go to the airport like my wife does with 5 pieces of luggage, right? And you know, that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. But it's taking longer to reach the line because we have too many unresolved baggage, right? So thank you so much, Katie. You are a superstar. Best of luck for you. I greatly appreciate your thought here.
Thanks.
So, ladies and gentlemen, conflict brings conflict. And when it comes into acceptance and inclusion, and I greatly want you to think about Maslow. Oh boy, guru of psychology. Maslow says, by the way, Katie, before I forget, do me a favor, do not lock your husband to the bathroom, right? Dialogue might be a better way, right? I don't want to have Derek be mad at me. Okay, so Maslow, guru of psychology, said that the ultimate goal for all of us professionals is to reach our fullest potential, right? This is what he calls self-actualization. So take a moment, Lori, and think about what is your fullest potential, or you, Kendra, right? My fullest potential as a speaker for this event is to, for this keynote at least, to hopefully inspire you, to get you to start thinking, what can I do? How can I kind of push a little more my organization to improve and increase the diversity and inclusion initiatives? Yes, in North Dakota. Yes, in South Dakota. Yes, in Midwest. Because of the fact that diversity happens and will continue to happen, right? So the question is not, do I care for it? Do I like it? Rather than, how do I manage it? How do I get proactive, right? So in order for me to reach my goal of inspiring and motivating, hopefully more than half of you today, right? I need to meet some other needs according to Maslow. I need to feel safe. I need to feel secure. I need to have a home. I need to have a shelter. That's what Maslow said. And I'm overly simplifying him right now. The third need, though, that he said, I need to meet my social need. I need to be able to be accepted by the people around me at work. It doesn't mean that I want my team members to listen to me at all times and agree with me. But when I go to work, I need to feel respected, right? And give that respect back. Regardless of my differences, me not being from North Dakota or somebody being from North Dakota, right? Because my heart is with North Dakota. So what if I was born in Greece? Whole different story, right? I'm a Greek North Dakotan and I feel like that. I'm all about Nefla and everything else. So now, after I bypass that social connection, very important, how do I strengthen the teams? How do I bring inclusion to my teams, right? What do I do as a person? And then the next step, according to Maslow, would be self-esteem. Then people will feel good about themselves. As a result, they will meet their fullest potential, right? So as we're thinking Maslow here, I really want to challenge you to think about that social, because most of the miscommunication happens there. And then we react or we don't take action. I can tell you a number of stories where I had nursing homes calling me, telling me that we hired you because the board told us to, right? Because we have 2-3 lawsuits we're dealing with and we need an intervention. And as I'm doing my assessments, I'm thinking, that has been happening for 10 years. Oh my goodness. How can people live like that? We spend more time working with one another at work than at home with our loved ones. We all deserve that happiness. All right. Excellent. Thank you, Katie, for helping me again. Any thoughts, any comments, or any questions? Oh boy, time flies when you have a good time here. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Barbara. That was so nice. I'm not done yet, Barbara. I have planned for plenty more things here. I want to do an activity. I really would like somebody to help me out for this activity. If you are kind enough, and I promise I'm not going to talk about dogs or locking your spouse in the bathroom. I'm not going to ask you anything about personal things, but I'm going to help. You're going to help me come up with a hiring decision here. So do I get a volunteer? Please, please, I can beg you if I need to. I need somebody to help me out. And again, you don't have to show yourself or speak out loud. You could use the chat if you would like. Or even better, actually, if I don't have a volunteer, maybe I can have many volunteers. Many of you can share my thoughts. All right, let's do this then. Our goal, we are an HR team, human resources. Oh boy, that's my area. And the goal is to hire an apprentice for an engineering position. All right, right? I thought to bring engineering, something that most of us have no clue about engineering, which I think would be perfect. We have the following names, and all that information plus more is located in the handouts of the conference. So make sure you go through the handouts. You're going to see I have a full PowerPoint for you, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to visit. But these are the names that we have, right? And I'm going to read those names. These are the candidates. We have Ali, or Ali, I don't know. We have Patrick, Jamie, David, Adriana, Hannah, and Delroy. So I'm going to ask you for this activity, not to take offense, obviously, please don't. But I'm going to ask you to stereotype and come up with assumptions, right? What assumptions, and I know that you don't agree with those assumptions, but what assumptions can you come up with any of these names, right? That sometimes subconsciously, we might say, I don't want to review that resume just because that name does not seem like a good match. Male or female, can you give me the name, Teresa? Are you talking about Ali or Ali? Or Jamie, right? Right away. Old versus young. Oh, I like that, Robin. You know, somebody told me once, Robin, that Patrick sounds like an old name. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I never heard of that before. Does it? I don't know. It's a cool name. Ali is a female, Teresa says, right? I don't know. Delroy might be an old name too. We don't hear that very often, right? Patrick is a male, okay, for sure. Right, Adriana. So we can make assumptions right away. Adriana is young, Robin says here, right? Oh, Adriana, young. So now, do I want a young person? Hannah is even younger, right? Katie says. So now, do I want a young person? Well, it's for an apprentice. Maybe I can favoritize that. Oh, Teresa said, Adriana is Hispanic. Now, do I not want a Hispanic, or do I want a Hispanic person based on my views? So now, am I going to exclude her resume, or am I going to invite her for an interview based on what culture or ethnicity I have? Lots of great thoughts. You guys are amazing. Oh boy, I don't want this presentation to end here. Patrick is too formal, right? Let's go with Pat, Darren says. I love it. All right, let's go with last names here and continue with the discussion. Ali Abdul, right? And I know it might be a little hard to see this way, but I have all that in the presentation. I think it is hard to see. I'm going to read them instead. Ali Abdul, Patrick Murphy, Jamie Small, David Campbell, Adriana Carboni, Hannah Mann, Delroy Bailey. Patrick is Irish Catholic, Mary says. Is he? A solid Irishman, Pete says. I like that. Ali, Adriana, and Delroy might be minorities. I don't know why, but every time I do this activity, everybody tells me that Delroy, I would never hire Delroy. Somehow, I don't know why, but that Delroy is a very unusual name, that something doesn't seem right for me. So if I had to say nothing, no, not like NEFLA, right, Robin? Right? So if I really want a NEFLA culture here, Delroy would definitely not cut it. All right. And it's kind of interesting to look at some of the faces here. As you can see, Ali Abdul, we have a face. Looks like possibly that is from India or Pakistan, possibly. Looking at Patrick Murphy, really young looking in the picture, probably white from what I can see. Jamie looks like a female. David is on a wheelchair and looks like a younger white man. Adriana Carboni, right? Not Italian, not white, is a black woman. Hannah Mann looks like, I don't know if she's part Asian or fully Asian. And Delroy is a younger black gentleman, all right? So this is what we see here. So as we are thinking, based on our names, I want you to take a moment and think of all the assumptions that we did make, thinking of, oh, Patrick might be old, or yeah, why doesn't he go by the name Pat, right? That shows something. So I'm thinking, if I need to bring an apprentice, do I need to bring somebody who is older? Am I going to discriminate based on age? Or do I really want somebody who does not fit my culture, that in my opinion that I need to have, right? Interesting enough, I do have, and on my next slide, the last slide, some of the information about each person. And this is most of us what we would do, right? We would take a look in the resume, the background, and then see, is that a good fit with the organization, regardless the name, the color, the age, and so forth, right? Now, Ali Abdul has nothing, no experience when it comes into engineering, but he went to the Army, right? Patrick Murphy is an entrepreneur, but he has business background, nothing again with engineering experience, right? So many of us would say, wait a second here, I need to focus on somebody that is probably beginning his or her career as a engineer for this apprentice that I need to hire. David, it does not matter to us if he is on a wheelchair or not. He does have a PhD of engineering, right? The question is, do I need somebody with a PhD of engineering, or do I need somebody who is just starting their career as an engineer? Do I give him a chance? Do I not? In my opinion, possibly, right? Adriana, she has no background whatsoever with engineering, right? So granted, it's very great for me to want to increase diversity by bringing a black woman in the organization. But if I don't bring the right candidate, again, she would not fit that profile. Hannah, the Asian woman, she was an engineer in the Army, so she has some engineering background. And Delroy is probably the perfect candidate, in my opinion, because he's an engineer graduate. He just graduated with his engineering degree, right? So as an apprentice, I think, again, he would be the perfect fit. So going back to all the names, the assumptions, the first three candidates that I would invite to an interview would be the ones that they have relevant experience and skill set in engineering. I want you to take a moment, though, and think about assumptions in general. And I thank you so much for the participation, by the way. And see, what can we do as an organization? Patty says a new graduate would be the perfect fit because then you can mold him into what the company needs and wants. You know, that would be great, actually. That would be my view as well, Patty, absolutely. But again, then it comes down into personalities. You might find somebody that had a little more experience that is a better fit with the personality, depending on, of course, the needs that you want. But a number of studies have shown how much subconsciously even we exclude people, right? Us versus them. Us that grew up in Bismarck versus them grew up in Mandan. You know what I mean, right? Whole different reality other than being us all together, focusing on how can we go from good to better, from better to best. When it comes into cultural diversity, right? It all started for me when I was 21. I transferred from a community college in Greece to Detroit, Michigan, to a university there. I was robbed at gunpoint day 3 in my United States. That was welcome and hello, right? So I remember me having to hang out at the police stations my first week in the United States, being 21, looking at mugshots, which was an interesting experience. Growing up in Greece, everything was literally Greek to me. Greek white people, Greek history, Greek culture. Greek economy was something new that happened later that we discovered, unfortunately. Greek history, Greek food, Greek everything. Detroit, Michigan was my first stop. So you can only imagine the cultural shock, every different culture, ethnicity. I realized that cultures differ during that long plane ride, and I tell you, oh boy, I do not like flying. Granted, because of what I do, I fly all the time now, and I tell you, wine, beer doesn't cut it. I tried that. Don't, it doesn't work for me. Jack Daniels does not cut it either. I try that too. What helps though is the more you do it, the better it gets. I was really nervous, and that air hostess from Germany really tried to be accommodating to my needs. So I remember her looking at me, telling me, it will be okay. And finally, I was calm enough, not because of the wine and beer, I'm clarifying that again. So I look at her and try to do this to her, telling her I'm okay. From that moment and on, she had stopped talking to me. For years, I was trying to figure out what had I said to upset her. And it's not what I had told her. Doing this to a German, I know many of you Germans would know that, right? I called her the ASS word, right? Not very appropriate on my end. And this is when I realized, after the fact, that over 60%, according to Edward Hall, famous anthropologist, over 60% of our communication could happen via our body language, and that gestures are not universal. I was trying to tell her I was okay. Instead, I conveyed something else. Have you heard of Margaret Thatcher? She was the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. Very dynamic political figure. She won her first election. She went in front of her voters. She wanted to tell them victory by doing this. Instead of her doing this, she did that. Instead of her telling them victory, she told them to piss off, right? She didn't mean to. Picture me the first day in the dorms with a group of, the first group of American people that approached me. They asked me to go to the drugstore, and I'm thinking, wow, the drugstore. These people are really, really open-minded, and that was before the marijuana days. It was about 25 years ago in college, right? So I'm thinking, wow, but I studied British English, and what we call there a drugstore means literally a drugstore. Also picture me, my first month, my first exam, raising my hand in front of my female professor, asking her, excuse me, may I please use your rubber? May I please use your rubber? Silence in the class. For weeks later, people would walk near me, they would point at me and they would whisper. I had no idea what was happening. All I was asking for in British English was an eraser. I tell you, this was a very, very traumatic event. And I did realize that it was not only I or Margaret Thatcher that miscommunicated and misunderstood that cultures differ, right? A number of multinational companies failed to understand that cultures differ. For example, Dairy Association Got Milk was translated as, "Are you lactating?" in Mexico, right? Can you imagine that? Coors beer, right? How many of you would say, "Oh, a nice ice cold Coors beer would relax me," right? Turn it loose, their slogan, "Turn it loose," was translated as "suffer from diarrhea" in Latin America. A lot of interesting mistakes that happen, and these companies, all they needed to do is to really do some research and find out that cultures indeed differ. KFC's "finger licking good" was translated as "bite your fingers off," right? In Latin America and China. I'm thinking, wow, that would be painful, totally. Whole different message. But it's not only the cultural differences. Think about generational differences. We're looking at Generation Z, 16 to 25 years old, entering our workforce. Very entrepreneurial mindset. They want to be their own boss, according to their own studies, right? They grew up with technology that changes all the time, right? Not so much multitaskers like the Generation Yers. But when it comes into attention span, according to recent studies, this is the youngest generation with the smallest amount of attention span. So now what is that telling me? As I'm training my new employees, right? I need to be able to adapt as a leader, as a team leader, right? I need to be able to understand and maybe train one thing at a time instead of focusing on trying to cover that same information. So when it comes into diversity and inclusion, to what extent am I ready, right? Or if I am a leader, those of you who are leaders, right, and right now you are attending this presentation, I really want to challenge you to think about what will you do to ensure that diversity and inclusion is part of your vision so that you can be proactive rather than being reactive. Younger generations, oh boy, they're all about feedback, right? Not once a year and in writing. Baby boomers love that. Why? Because they learned that from their parents, the traditionalists. Younger generations, they want to know more frequently. They need more praising. Why? Because that's how we spoil our kids nowadays, right? We praise them all the time. So they come to work and they want to be praised more than once a year, right? So the question is, as you're strategically planning every year, and hopefully you do every year, look at the strengths and look at your weaknesses. This is what we call a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. But if you focus on strengths and weaknesses, that's internally. What can you control? Give kudos to yourselves for all the strengths that you have. Prioritize the weaknesses and try to figure out, is diversity and inclusion part of your strength or part of your weakness? And depending on what it is, what are you going to do? What programs are you going to implement to ensure that everybody in the workplace will feel good about themselves according to Maslow, will meet their fullest potential as professionals, and will stay at work, right? After all, it's up to me, ladies and gentlemen, to make my happiness happen. It's up to all of you to make your happiness happen, despite the differences that we have. Any questions, any thoughts, or any comments? Please visit me on my website at diversitykeynote.com. I will be more than happy to connect with you. I have plenty more resources on diversity to share with you. If you need additional information in addition to the handout, feel free to visit me at Diversity Keynote. I cannot thank you enough. Thank you, all of you. A lot of kudos to those of you who really, truly organized that event. You are rock stars and you keep up the good work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.